Well, here we are again. It is Friday, November 7th, 2025, and this is the weekly video. We're going to take a look this week, as we always do, at some auction results that happened, some upcoming sales, and an interesting thing happened in the last month. If you've been paying attention to the sales in Hong Kong versus the sales in London, there's a very interesting sort of phenomenon that happened where the sales in Hong Kong were, I think, for Bonhams anyway, were extremely disappointing. And it's not because the stuff wasn't good. I think it's because they had some rather unrealistic consigners on their hands. And I think they did the best they could. But the consigners failed to understand how auctions work. They may be good auction buyers, but they're not good auction sellers. And that's something that's going to punish them in the future, I think, because they've now got a lot of dead stuff they can't sell or didn't sell. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about this. This is a sale. I was contacted by Arts of Asia magazine. They asked if I'd mention it. This is a very interesting show. It's called Handmade and Handheld. And it's sung to Qing Dynasty Chinese bronzes for the Scholars Studio. And this is an area that's getting increasing interest. You'll notice in the last couple of years, you've suddenly seen a pretty strong prices in these bronzes, which for a long time were overlooked. I remember not that many years ago, antique shops around the Boston area would have very nice Yuan, Ming bronzes, and they'd sell them for nothing. They because they were very popular in New England, I know, but during the late Victorian into the early 20th century, and thousands of them were brought in, and you find them. You used to find them all the time in antique shops sitting around. Nobody really I used to buy them, but nobody wanted them, and they were selling for $100, $200, maybe $300, that sort of thing. And today they're bringing thousands. And because I think it's a renewed appreciation during that period when they brought back examples and they sort of not reinvented the wheel, but came up with updated, newer versions. And it's a very interesting period of time that took place over the course of about 600 or 700 years. And they're doing a show on it at the University of Hong Kong. And this is the promotion for it. It's going to be there. It opened on the 31st of October, so it just opened a week or so ago. And it's going to run through February 26th. And it looks like a really interesting show. So if you're going to have any reason to be near the University of Hong Kong in the next 4 months, by all means, go see this show. I think it'll be very much worth your while. They've got some lovely examples. I saw some photographs of what they've got. There's some very rare examples, some beautiful examples, and I think it looks like a good take, and so forth. And I don't know if they have a book for it or a catalog. They may be coming out with one. They often do for these. So do check that out. And on the topic of bronzes is something else I want to talk about. And I talked about this we did a Patreon video the other day, and I talked about it. A friend of mine, who I've known for a number of years now in Italy, his name is Carlo Santi. And you may know that I met when we went to Italy a couple of months ago. I mentioned that we met with him and his fiance, and we had a lovely afternoon with them on Lake Maggiore. He lives in, his business is Marco Polo Auctions. He's based in Milan. And I heard a lot about trying to run an auction house in Italy. It's not easy because of all the regulations and whatnot, but he's committed to doing it. He's really put himself out there, but he's got something coming up in this sale that I want to talk about. He mentioned it to me. He showed me photographs of it when I was in Italy with him, and I want to show you this. This is an incredibly rare Goryeo period gilt bronze Buddha, and it is enormous. It's 51 centimeters high. This is a very, very big bronze. It came from a very prominent Italian family. It's been researched to pieces. It has a long history in the family, and they've decided to part with it. They apparently have had it, the implication I got, they've owned it for 150 years, a long, long time. And it's been tested thoroughly. They tested the clay. They did XRF tests on it. They did everything to verify the age of it because it's so phenomenally good. It is so incredibly good. Here's a picture of the bottom. Carlo did a really good job. He hired a very good photographer to do all this work, and they took some stunning photographs of this thing. And the quality of the work on this bronze is quite amazing. Quite amazing. It's on a par with, there's a very good bronze in the Korean National Museum, and this is every bit as good as that, if not maybe a little bit better. It's a stunningly attractive bronze, and he did go to the trouble, or not the trouble, but I suppose it was the pleasure of publishing a catalog for the sale. Not for the, well, he's got a regular general sale coming up. The sale's going to be on December 2nd, but he put together this booklet on this particular bronze, just for the bronze. The rest of it'll be included in the general auction, but he did this for it, and there's some very good photographs on it. It goes through the history of it, the design of it, the importance of it. It was made during the 12th to the early 13th century. There's hot links on the catalog, and I will post this catalog. Will be posted on the newsletter page until the auction. I'm going to leave it there for folks that want to look it up, because even if you're not going to bid on it, it's a fascinating thing. But it is, I think, a great opportunity for a museum to get the chance to buy one of these, because they hardly ever turn up on the market. And if you go over to Christie's or Sotheby's or Bonhams, you're going to find maybe one of these that is sold that's on their archives right now of this quality. I think the last one they had that wasn't as good went through Sotheby's. It was a really good one, of course, and it sold for $441,000 a couple of years ago, I think 2022 or 2023. But I think this one is better. It's actually a little bit bigger, and it's very crisp and quite elegant. But at any rate, he did a lot of work on this. He did a lot of research. He contacted experts on it. They've gone over this thing thoroughly. It is completely authentic. And as I said, there are hot links in the catalog where you can go and look up some of the comparisons and profile information. It's had, over here, it explains the testing that it went through, all of it. All right, and I'm only explaining all this because he's worked his tail off for this, and I want him to do well with it. I want this to find a home. I want this to sell, and I would love to see an institution acquire it, or maybe a benefactor buy it for a museum. It is an amazingly rare thing. And as I mentioned yesterday in the Patreon video, great Chinese antiques are in Italy. Italy has, I've spent quite a bit of time there. I've been there with my wife up in the Veneto and so forth, and I've seen some absolutely astonishingly good Chinese antiques in Italy. And they've been there for a very, very long time. Chinese antiques, Japanese antiques, Korean screens, all that stuff been absorbed into that culture, and they linger around the countryside. And every once in a while, one of these things pops up, and Carlo has the opportunity to sell it. And if you are a person that is in this wheelhouse, it's something you might want, I would urge you to take a good look at it. It's an amazing thing. All right, now and we're gonna cover the whole auction that he puts up. It's coming. It's going to get published in a couple of weeks, and we'll do a video on that on the entire sale, as we always do anyway. But he wanted me to know about this, and he's very excited, and I don't blame him. All right, now what has happened last week, before we get into some of the results over in Hong Kong and what's coming up in London. There's a few of the things we talked about last week. One of them was this was at Doyle Galleries, had this sale just yesterday. This very nice molded Longquan Celadon charger, Ming Dynasty. I had mentioned last week that if it's not worn in the center, this is a very nice example. It's very well potted. The color was good. And my only concern last week when I talked about it was, is there wear in the middle? Because often these bowls get worn in the centers and it detracts from them. And apparently this one was okay. And in the end, it ended up selling for $1,400 plus the premium, or around $1,800. So it did go over its estimate. It was a wonderful thing, though. It was very, very attractive. It was a nice size, too. It was 13.5 inches in diameter, which is a good size plate. It's a nice size. And then this was this was at Bonhams. We talked about it. Was this Goryeo period Celadon from Korea with white clay and black inlay and so forth, or maybe it's just white clay inlay on this one. I think it's just white clay. Yeah. No, there's a little black in it. There it is. Yeah, it does have black in it. With this later cage top made into an incense burner, probably done in Japan, the screen top. They often did that. This was an awfully nice thing, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago because I thought it was just so good, and I thought the estimate was very, very low, and apparently so did everybody else that looked at it. It was estimated at just 1,500 to 2,000 pounds, and it ended up going for 13,000 pounds plus the premium. So it went out the door. That puts it out the door at about 17 or $18,000 US or so, roughly. Went way over the estimate, but it was a beautiful example, and I'm glad to see there was some interest in it because it was a rarity. All right. The other thing that turned up, just as an example, the silk market remains pretty good. This was a fairly standard gauze 9 dragon robe rather than silk. It's on gauze. It's the summer robe, the lighter robe. And it ended up doing quite well. It sold for $6,557 plus premium, or about 8,000 all done. And this was at Lion and Turnbull just earlier today, as a matter of fact. This just closed, and I wanted to check it out. Also, the Olympia sale finished up the other day, and they had pretty good results. They had some buy-ins, and that's something we're going to get talking to in about a minute. Some of the buy-in issues. All right, and this also, I think this was also at Lion Turnbull. This was very nice, and it did well. It was had a very, very modest estimate. I had a couple of inquiries about it through the service over at Bidamount. This was a very nice Joseon period to transitional era footed brush pot. 7-sage tripod incense burner. This was a very sweet little burner. Very, very nice. I told somebody I thought it would bring at least 8 or 10,000 US, and it did. It went over that, actually. But I thought it was a very nice example, very delicately painted, and ended up going for 13,000 plus the premium. So much from I was off by about half, or a little less. I was off by about 40% on it. It did very well. Sold for about $17,000, but an awfully nice example. It was a good Tonglu. And this was also sold just earlier today. So somebody, bravo, maybe one of you bought it. How big was this? It was 4 inches in diameter. It was acquired from a professor at Kyoto University in Japan. He's been collecting Asian art for 50 years, 7 sages of the bamboo grove, renowned grouping of Chinese scholars and poets, and so forth. Very interesting thing, something for the scholars collector. I thought it was rather nice. And then over to this, you may remember this. We talked about it last week. This was in the Bonhams sale of the was it the Priestley sale? Was this very nice Buddha jade bowl, Qing Dynasty, probably early 19th century. Had a very modest estimate, $3,000 to $5,000. It had sold at Christie's or someplace. There it is, Christie's in 2018. I don't know what it sold for then, but this time around it did pretty well. It brought 15,000 plus premium, or around $22,000, and it measured 5 1/8 inches in diameter. But a very, very attractive piece. The Buddhas were done in really good high relief carving on this, and very finely detailed and very precisely placed. And the top of the piece, as you can see, was beautifully cut all the way around. This was a nice example. I think it was very, very good. And then hopping along over to let's see. This is I want to get over. Just skip through this. Hold on. We're going to get into some other results in a second, but I wanted to quickly mention a couple of pieces that are coming up. Check out the Freeman sale on November 12th if you're an export porcelain buyer. They've got a number of very, very rare forms, very rare form China trade Fitzhugh pieces in this sale. There's this one, and this one, and so forth. And they came from many of them were sold by Polly Latham, who's a very, very good China trade dealer in Boston. I've known Polly for, God, I hate to say it, over 35, 40 years now. Anyway, Polly, if you see this, how are you? And I don't know if she watches. I know she's seen the show, the videos, but anyway, she's a great dealer. She's a lovely person, and she handles some of the finest China trade sold in North America. If you've never been in her store or been to see her, you don't know what you're missing. But she has a very good customer base. And this piece belonged to, she sold it apparently to John DeCicero, who is a well-known Nantucket guy in the summer. He's a finance guy from Boston, very successful, benefactor to I think the Metropolitan Opera, all that sort of social stuff. But he's also a China trade collector, and he's apparently deaccessioning some things out of his own collection. And he's got these are some extremely fine examples. And there's 4 or 5 of them in this auction. This is Doyle's on November 12th. If you're a China trade collector and you like rare forms, a lot of them look like English silver forms to me, you want to go check it out. They're absolutely great. And if Polly sold them, the chances are they were perfect. So you can always ask for a condition report, but she was very, very finicky about condition. So yeah, you can be assured it's probably a very good piece, no matter what. But always get a condition report on porcelain. And then the other thing that's coming up on the 18th of November, and this is coming up at Bronx. And I don't think I mentioned this last week, and I meant to. That's why I'm going back to it. Is this a pair of export floral paintings? All right, by Sun Qua, and I meant to mention them. Sun Qua was extremely fine China trade paintings, and so forth. This is when you look at these paintings and you see how well they're painted, especially the reading on the basket, for example, the very, very fine details, the color, the shading, the tone of the paper, all looks very, very good. Let's see here. Basket, Sun Qua stamp, a verso on the back on pith paper. Each measures 10 by 6 inches, and they're framed. They're all ready to go. These are lovely. These are very, very nice. And these are the fine, Sun Qua is pretty much the finest pith paintings you can buy that were ever done. And these were probably done in around 1850. The estimate is $500 to $700, $250 opening bid. Right now, I'm the only watcher on them. So somehow I don't think this auction just popped up. I think it's just they've just been overlooked. I don't know what's going on, but you have a chance to buy something here if they don't get a lot of traction that might be of great interest. And this is at Bronx down in Asheville. And they've got some good sales coming up. If you're an American furniture buyer or furniture decorative art buyer, you want to check out their other sales. They've for a while they were kind of quiet. I didn't know what was going on, and suddenly they came back and they've got all these sales. So I'm glad to see it. And because for a while seemed like Leland Little was doing all the sales, and now Bronx is back, and I think they're back sort of on good competitive footing again. Both are good auction companies. All right, and then over to this. This just turned up. Now, this is a short notice thing, and I don't know how it's going to do. It's on a sale on November 16th. Harvest Moon Auctions, in about a week, is going to sell this. And this is a very rare. These turn up now and again. We've had a few of them in the last couple of months. Is the Rockefeller pattern porcelains made for the China trade in the 18th century. And this particular one is a chestnut basket. And chestnut baskets in this form are pretty rare. And this one has not only the basket, but the undertray. And the handles do not look broken. The handles on these, you always want to check them because they are very, very prone to breaking. But this one looks like it's had very gentle use. And the reason you know it, of course, if you've watched enough of my videos, is the gilding is in beautiful condition, pretty much. I don't see any noticeable, there's a little thin, tiny air indications of wear here and there, but nothing of any significance. This really look like, on a scale of 1 to 10, these are a 9.5. And the handles are wonderful. These big ribbed handles on the ends, and then you have the vines that come off that connect to the body of the bowl. But I like this a great deal. I think this is a very nice one. There's the bottom of it. It doesn't have the Mandarin seam that you typically see on these. So maybe some people would argue it's not technically Rockefeller pattern. To me, with this gold border and the grisaille decorations and all this, it's a Rockefeller pattern or layout. For this, and it's very, very nice. And the estimate is very modest, $1,000 to $1,500. I expect it to bring $3,000 to $5,000, but we'll see. We'll see. You may get a bargain. Somebody may be able to buy this for a couple of $1,000s. It measures. The basket is 7 inches long, and the undertray plate is 8.5. So it's sort of a miniature, which that actually makes it rare. Sometimes smaller things are rarer than big things. And this is a smaller one than normal because often these have an undertray that are 10 to 11, 12 inches long, and the basket is around 9 inches. This one is a few inches under that, so it may be a sort of an unusual example. All right, now what I wanted to get into was this. This is something that happened, and this is not a knock on Bonhams at all. This was the Observing the Past Leisures of the Cloud Villa, Leisure Cloud Villa, Scholarly Playthings, and the other one was the fine works of art sale they had over there in Hong Kong. But what happened was these pieces had fairly heavy duty estimates, and what's happening, I think, is that if you're a consigner, I should probably do it. Tell me what you think. I might do a video on how to consign stuff to auction where you get the most out of it and you don't blow your feet off by making stupid mistakes. Because the consigner that consigned this stuff, I'm going to assume, thought the stuff was worth a lot more than it really was. There's a psychology that comes in here in selling at auction. People are very good psychologically at buying at auction. They look for low estimates, low reserves, all the things that encourage competition and participation. And what turns you off? High estimates and high reserves. So a lot of people will buy, they know their own psychology. They will buy at auctions much more actively with low estimates, and by virtue of having they have low estimates, that means they have to have low reserves, basically, because the minimum selling price can't be above the low estimate is a general rule. All right, so you see those sales and people go after them and they pile up and you can see them, they get hundreds and hundreds of watchers and everybody knows the estimate's crazy low or lower than it's going to be, but they want to take a shot. They're hoping to participate. They leave bids. Sense of ownership overcomes them. They begin now that they're not only going to buy it, now they're going to fight to own it. And if you have an auction with big, a very good auction, doesn't matter how good the stuff is. All the stuff that Bonhams had was phenomenal, but they had a 70% unsold rate in 2 sales back to back. And the reason is I would wager that the consigners went in with very unrealistic expectations. And maybe they'd been told by other auction houses, who knows, that those prices are just not going to happen anymore. If they had bought these things back in the early 2000s through 2014, they paid top dollar, and now they want to get out of it for whatever reason. It's time to turn over the collection. They're updating, and what's going to happen is they're going to be disappointed. All right, you have to go where you have to sell into the market that exists, not the market you hope for. And I think what happened here was that you had a couple of very, very good collectors that had amazing things, and they were very proud of their collections, and they forced excessively high estimates. And when you go through here and you look at this, you're going to see a lot of lines with just the estimates. And when you see just the estimate and no sold price, that means it didn't sell. It didn't go to a new home. And what happens now is the owner of this collection is stuck. He shot himself in the foot because everybody's going to remember this collection who collected this realm. If it comes back on the market in the next 5 years, they're going to all remember it as these are the lots that didn't sell at Bonhams. These are the lots that didn't get off. All right. And unless something seismic happens in the auction market that will recover that negative impact of having been what's known as a dead lot. In the trade, they call these dead lots, buy-ins. All right. And it's you get one shot at the wheel. You get one spin of the wheel when you're selling at auction, basically, and you better get it off the ground on that one shot. The idea that some of these folks think that, well, I will put it up with a high estimate, high reserve, and if it doesn't sell, then I'll come back and I'll lower it. And what usually happens is when they come back with the lowered one, they may not sell at all. There may be no interest at all because everybody has seen it. It's coming through the cow for the second time. That's it. All right. And now, that was this. I'm going to place squarely on the feet of greedy consigners. If you're a consigner to an auction, be smart. What do you look for when you're going to bid at an auction? Not as the seller, but as the buyer, because that's who you're relying on. You need your buyer. You need the buyer, and you're not going to get buyers with insane estimates or out of the wheelhouse estimates. And right now, with a lot of things that are going on in the global economies and whatnot, there's a little shakiness, as we all know. So you have to take that into account. All right, but that's just the way it is, and I hope people figure it out. This was the Olympia sale. It wasn't a heavy duty sale. They had a lot of things under $5,000, $3,000. They had some very nice blue and white wares. They had a number of unsold lots for whatever reasons. It may have been large reserves. Again, maybe looming its ugly head because people do shop auction houses. They'll shop around until they find one. They'll give them what they want as far as estimates and reserves go, and then that auction house ends up stuck with them trying to sell them. All right, it's no different in Europe than it is in Hong Kong or anywhere else. You see it happen in New York once in a while. All right, but at any rate, this sale was pretty good. There were some nice pieces. This nice, very well-known type of Long Kong Celadon, 1,200 pounds. Perfectly reasonable. There's some very nice monochromes were in the sale, but mostly modest price things for what I call the average collector, all of us. And I think overall the sale did fine. The sale did fine. They did a good job with their illustrations and good job with the descriptions, which are, of course, a very big part of it. Now, there's a bunch of other sales that haven't wrapped up yet. They're just getting started. They're going to be selling for the next week and a half over in the UK and Ireland and so forth, and we'll get back to the prices when they sell. Now, over here, this was the Priestley and Ferraro sale that took place. This was the online sale. And overall, this sale did fine. Priestley and Ferraro were very well-known dealers in London. They started their company 30, 40 years ago. The father retired, the daughter's retiring, and they're calling it a day. So they're selling off their inventory, apparently. And this was the online stuff. This wasn't the top of their big stuff. But overall, I think it did very, very well. I think it did very, very well. Yeah, this very nice Yu Yao incense burner went for about 12,000 US and so forth. There's some very fine pieces. There's that Korean piece right there that we talked about at the beginning. That was in this sale. This was online. This was the online only sale. Some other Korean examples, but it looks like pretty much everything sold. This was smart consigning. This is what happens. And if you go in and you check the estimates, you're going to find that many of these pieces went at or above their estimates. All right, that's just simply the matter of it. I talked about these last week. I like these a lot. These Han pottery figures with cats' heads on them, feline heads, went for 3,300 pounds, which I think is perfectly fine. Very attractive. These were quite big too. I think they were 15 inches tall or something. 16 and 3/8 inches tall. They were pretty good size. But anyway, this was a good result. Smart consigner, modest, reasonable estimates. 100% sold, and they're out. They're done, and that's the way to do it. So bravo on that. And then this is the Fine Chinese Art Sale that started yesterday. It finished up yesterday in London, and overall, I think it did pretty well. They had a few buy-ins here and there because you got multiple different types of consigners and so forth. But overall, you see a lot of sold signs going in here, and I suspect there'll be some post-sale purchases as well. There usually are. But the robe market remains strong. Here you have a very, very nice yellow robe that went for about 21,000 pounds, sort of imperial type of 12-symbol dragon robe and so forth. So the sale overall was quite strong. This flask did very, very well. The Phoenix Moon flask, the Bayou Ping, Qinlong marking period, had a very low estimate, as I recall. I thought the estimate on this I think it was around $50,000. It went for 280,000 pounds. Did very, very well. Again, the estimates don't mean anything. All they do is high estimates just scare people away. Put a reasonable estimate on it and sell it. All right, you're there to sell and so forth. But overall, this sale did just fine. This sale did just fine. Did very well. I thought it was a good, successful auction. All right, and then hopping along over to I don't know what happened there. They have this sale. Let's see here. Now this sale is ending, starting on the 11th of November. This is a sale that's coming up, and this is their Chinese works of art sale, Collector's Treasure. Asia Works Online. It's online only, but there's some awfully nice things in here. I'm going to go through some of them. There's some good Japanese pieces, there's some good Chinese pieces, and again, things for the more typical collector, the person who's not going to spend probably more than, typically $10,000 or $15,000. And many of these lots will sell in the hundreds, so stick around. One of the things that's in the sale is keep clicking out here. What's going on? There we go. There's let's see here. I think we have to work our way over to it a little bit. No, I guess that's the beginning of it. Okay, I want to make sure I'm in the right place. This is a series of attributed to Tin Kwa, and these were handled, not surprisingly, they came from Martin Gregory, and they belonged to somebody named Reverend William Gillespie, who I don't know who it is. But at any rate, these are very rare. These are port scenes, but these are miniature port scenes. And if you've been collecting China trade images for any length of time, you know what that means. Miniature port scenes, miniature paintings that are identified in English script in the bottom, written in this manner. These are fairly rare. These are identified ports where they did them at the time. They wrote the name on there or right after the picture was completed. And these are quite small. These are very small, 2 3/4 inches high by 4 1/4 inches. And these are much, much, much by a multiple of 20 rarer than some of the bigger ones. All right. And this has the ports of Shanghai, Whampoa, Macau, Hong Kong, the Bogue forts, old Canton factories, the old Canton factories burned by the Chinese, circa 1857, framed. These are great. And they're all framed and ready to go. And I think the estimate is very, very modest, 4,000 to 6,000. The last time I was at a sale where they had some of these miniatures, they brought about double that. And they're even rare if you find them painted on tin. If you ever find China trade paintings on tin that are small little sheets of tin, they're even rarer. But anyway, these are beautiful pictures, and they're very rare and unusual. They're estimated at 5,000 to 7,000 US. I think they should sell. The sale is in 3 days. If you've been looking for a rarity, these are rarities. All right, and then also in this, get rid of the little bitter connection loss. I don't know why I lost my connection, but I did. Is this a photo, Chinese artist, circa 1790, collectors, this is the collector's treasure online sale. This is Chinese and Western merchants tasting tea and marking chests. This is a very interesting painting. It's not Chinese figures for the most part. It's mostly Europeans. And over here, you have them sampling the teas on the left. And then over here, they've decided to purchase it. They're marking the chest with their own mark, so they make sure they get what they ordered and doesn't get mixed up. All right. And this is a very interesting painting. And on the back of it, of course, is the Bury Street label of Martin Gregory, legendary dealer. And the estimate, I think, is very reasonable, 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. This is a nice picture, too. It's good size. It's 14 by 10 inches is the site size. And it's a gouache on paper. This is not a pith painting. This is on paper. All right. And then over to this, the Chinese artist, early 19th century, let's see, this is Whampoa, the anchorage, as it was often referred to. It looks like it's in very, very good condition. How big is this thing? 18 by 23 inches. And it's an oil, of course. There it is. This is a good, crisp painting, beautifully done. Probably has been cleaned by probably one of the best cleaners in London, I suspect, if Martin Gregory had it. But beautiful, crisp painting, beautiful light, lovely example, and that's the anchorage. And there's the back of it. It's been all conserved and stabilized, so it's not going to crack anymore. So you don't have to spend $1,500 getting that done if you buy it. The estimate is 6,000 to 11,000 US. And then hopping over to this is a very interesting thing. Mid-18th century paintings, a portrait of Siang and the lady. And Siang is the gentleman on the left. He was a merchant dignitary or something. There is a very similar example to this, a portrait of this man, also in the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. I don't know if it's on display right now, but I know they have one. And this one is modestly estimated, $1,000 to $2,000. It's a very interesting painting. I love the guy on the right with the big hat. The woman on the left is a very standard sort of, Chinese beauty picture, but the one on the right is quite interesting. He looks like a warm fellow. I like him. And then over to this, 9 volumes and catalogs from the George Marfopoulos collection. Now, you may remember just a month ago, another set of these. This is a very rare set of books. So it's sort of interesting. They've turned up twice in the last couple of months. There's been 2 sets. There was one in the States that came up for sale. And as you can see here, the estimate is between 6,000 and 11,000. And I believe the set in the United States sold for about 8,000 or 9,000 plus premium. So the estimate is spot on. And this is a very, very rare set of books. If you like early books of early collections, and this is 9 volumes of that collection published between 1925 and 1928. And it covers the Hobson catalog of George. It was written by R.L. Hobson, the keeper of the British Museum, and the catalog of George Marfopoulos, Korean and Persian pottery. It's got everything in it. It's a very interesting book. It's a trip through time. The Boston Athenaeum, as I recall, had a set that I looked at years and years ago. It was pretty amazing. Anyway, that's a very interesting thing. And then other things that are coming up. This is coming up. This is a very interesting flambe glaze Yixing stoneware. Now, it's marked. It's got the mark on it of Ji Mingxiang, and Ming Zhang, and he was an 18th century. He had it was two of them, two brothers, I believe, and they were doing flambe glazes on Yixing wares, and they were sort of famous for it. And they didn't. Now they're not saying they're just saying mark of Xi Mingjiang, so they're not swearing that's by him. I suspect it probably is, because this is what they were sort of known for, and it does have their mark on the bottom. And I don't think at the time there were a lot of people forging Yixing pottery marks for on flambe wares, because they weren't the sort of the norm. Maybe they did, maybe it is, I don't know. But this looks like a very good one. It measures about 8 or 9 inches tall. It's a very, very lovely example. And if you flip the thing over, there's the mark on the bottom. And the bottom of it, it clearly looks like an 18th century example, with the way this foot is done and the way the glaze is pouring over just above this raised lip here. That all is very typical of late 18th century wares. It's a nice looking pot, and the estimate is nothing, 600 to 800 pounds. If you've ever wanted to own one, this is your chance. Reasonable estimate. Go after it. All right, you never know. You never know. You might get a bargain. And then also coming up in the sale, the collector's treasure sale, is this pair of vases. And I'm only mentioning them because they're so unusual. These are not especially old. These are 19th century vases, 1840s, 1850s, probably somewhere around there. Maybe a little before, maybe a little after. But the coloring and the style of the decoration just struck me as being fascinating. All right. With this very elongated, very white, it looks like it's on a white enamel ground. It looks like white enamel with this pink dragon descending. And then you have these birds on the neck, upside down pecking, and then the ruffled rims. And these vases are pretty big. They're 23 inches tall, but very unusual coloring, quite attractive. Maybe they're late, second half of the 19th century, I guess. But I think they're just so interesting, and very, very pretty and very atypical. And they're only estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 pounds, which I think is very reasonable for these. These are big, extremely pretty, and get a condition report, of course. They're 24 and 3/4 inches, so they're just a hair under 25 inches tall. And they've got, and the crane handles are just great on the necks, pecking down the side. And you have the two descending dragons. All right, and then hopping along over to this is coming up. This is a really nice. A Japanese Amari bowl, late 17th, early 18th century. This is a foot in diameter. You don't see many punch bowls a foot in diameter with the polychrome enamels of this quality from that period. They don't turn up very often. Typically, you see this form in rounded bowls that were done during the end of the Edo period into the Meiji period, and sometimes in the late 18th. But this appears to be a late 17th or early 18th century example. It looks awfully pretty. It looks awfully nice. The cobalt quality is excellent. There's the interior. Once you see the interior, you know that it's a late 17th century example with these bold devices and the spacing and so forth. And it looks like it's in very, very nice condition, beautiful condition all the way around. The estimate's 800 to 1,200 pounds. Very reasonable. That's a nice thing. Again, reasonable estimates. And then the last thing, I think this is one of the last things in the Bonhams things we're going to cover, is this. This is a dandy mixed metal inlaid brush pot, and it's a miniature on top of it. If you like Japanese fine metalwork and mixed metalwork, you want to look at this. It's 3 1/8 inches tall, so it's about that big. And it's estimated just 500 to 600 pounds, but it's a really, really lovely example. That's a nice piece of metalwork. That's a very, very attractive thing. And I like the fact that the elements are, the piece is tiny, but the elements are big. And the maker really trimmed it nicely with the way they did the top and the foot. And again, you have these sort of wedged feet, just like we saw on that incense burner from the Chonzhen period. That one's Chinese, this is Japanese. They use very similar feet. There's the maker's mark on the bottom. Beautiful example, and it's from the Nagawa company from the Meiji period. Very, very nice, and that's sort of it. There's just a couple of other things I wanted to mention. Was that the Chinese Works of Art sale that was in London this week? It did pretty well. They had one of their major lots didn't sell. I don't know quite why. Maybe that old estimate thing again. I'm not sure, but if you go back, the Mei Ping base that I think they had pretty big hopes for it. For whatever reason, didn't get off the ground. Well, it's on one of these pages here. Anyway, it didn't sell, But some of the other lots did. One of the lots that did very well, though, was this very big, monumental, extremely rare, archaic bronze food vessel. All right, it was a Ding, late Shang Dynasty, maybe Western Zhou. It was 18 inches high. This is a big bronze, 18 inches. Most of these bronzes in this form, you see, they're 8 or 9 inches, 10 inches tall. This is a monster. This was a monstrously big bronze. Very elegant, beautiful color. I love the legs, the way the legs were done, so forth. Western Zhou to Shang Dynasty. It was estimated at 600 to 1 million British pounds, and it ended up selling right in the middle, 762,000 pounds. But a great example. But overall, the Sotheby's sale did well. So I guess the lesson of the day is if you see very high if you're putting stuff into auctions today and you're demanding high estimates because you paid a lot, get over it. You're probably not going to get your money back, and you're probably going to cause more damage to the value of your collection if you demand high reserves and high estimates. High reserves and high estimates kill sales. If you want to do really well, you go back and look through the history of auctions, and you'll see that modest estimates, modest reserves win the day every single time, pretty much. 90% of the time. People generally don't chase. They want to push, they want to buy, they want to pursue because they're in love with the object. All right. And the market will tell you how much something is worth. Frankly, half the time you shouldn't even bother putting, you've seen many cases where auction houses don't even bother with reserves or estimates. Even they'll say that how many auctions have we seen where the piece is estimated for $25 to $50,000. All right, what they're saying is we have no idea what it's worth. And those pieces, I believe, find their price, seek out their price just as well as a piece that's got some highly researched estimate, because the market always tells you what your things are worth. If the auction is up in time, it's got lots of good images, and the auction house has a good reputation for fairness and honesty, you're going to get your price. That's all there is to it. You won't in every single piece. Some pieces will go high, some pieces you'll go low, but in general, you will come out of it absolutely fine overall, and usually well ahead of the game. Those are my thoughts. I didn't mean to rant so much about that today, but it's something I'm seeing happening, and I've seen it happen before. I saw it happen in the American furniture market when that declined back in the 90s. I've seen it in other market shifts, and people just can't let go of things without getting the profit that they thought they had in their heads. And as I've said many times, if you're buying antiques as investments, you're out of your mind. Buy antiques because you love them, and if they go up in value, great. If they go down in value, you've had the pleasure of owning them. But don't treat them as financial vehicles beyond that. All right, that's all I'm going to say. All right, have a wonderful week. Thank you for watching. I didn't mean to rail so much, but I guess I'm in a railing mood today. And subscribe here if you haven't. And a number of you have joined us this week on Patreon. I noticed we picked up a number of new subscribers, so welcome to all of you. Glad to see you, and we'll be putting some things up over there. We'll be updating the global pages for the bid amount users and the Patreon users tomorrow morning, first thing. And everything is fine and dandy. Give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. See you next time around, and we'll be covering the auction results once the sales are all done. Okay, bye-bye.